Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to make a special Halloween pumpkin truck. I'm going to be using this Hot Wheels 1952 Chevy truck. It was out of a Hot Trucks pack. I'm going to repaint it and weather it a bit, and then I'll show you how to make some pumpkins to put in the back of it. I'm also going to make a little display case diorama of a pumpkin patch. Now I have to admit I've kind of pinched this idea off of one of my favourite diecast custom channels, Sharon Tashish. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyway, a few days ago he released a similar old pumpkin truck for Halloween. He does some really awesome customs, creating his own suspension systems and bashing cars together. So I recommend that you go and check out his video as soon as you've watched this one. I'll leave a link in the description below. As you can see here, I've drilled out the post and taken the truck apart. Then it was on with some paint stripper and off with the paint, and I gave it a buff up with the wire brush on my rotary tool, removing any remaining paint and oxidation. After this, it was given a coat of white primer. I then painted it a nice green. And here it is with the coat of green on it. I want it to look a bit more old and faded than this, so I spray it very lightly with some thinned down white paint. Next I paint in the door handles and the headlights. Now for some rust chipping. I'm going to paint this in with a brush. I start with a dark brown and then I'll add a little bit of a lighter rust colour over the top here and there. Once I was happy with my rust chipping, I added some black wash to the panel lines and some other areas where I wanted a bit of shading. Now I'll put that aside for a bit and move on to the base of the car. I don't like these wheels here, so I'm going to get rid of those first of all. Now I'm just going to remove the chrome off of this base here with some caustic soda and some hot water. Just a small spoonful in there, and after a couple of minutes you can see the chrome starting to disappear. Now I give this a undercoat of black. I then painted the underneath in burnt steel, and I hit the grille with a thin coat of chrome. Some black wash is added to the chrome just to bring out the details. Now I can fit the two parts together and add some dust weathering powder. Once I was happy with this, I took them back apart and hit them with a coat of matte varnish. The windscreen was rubbed over with dust weathering powder, and then I used a cotton bud just to mark a couple of wiper blade marks into the front. And these are some green light off-road wheels that I'm going to replace the original ones with. They're a bit too white, so I paint the centers of them steel and then apply some rust and a black wash and then some dust weathering. And so here are all the parts of our truck refurbished and repainted. Now I'll move on with the diorama base. I'll start with this display case base. It's got a clear cover that fits over it. I'll begin by masking off the sides there so they stay nice and black. I'll then add a thin layer of this filler spackling here. This will be my dirt. I'm going to run this cheap toy over it to leave some tire tracks, like tractor tire tracks. And here it is after a few hours. It's nice and dry. Just going to sand the edges away from the masking tape there. Now to paint it, I start with a coat of burnt sienna. And then I give it a thinned down wash of burnt umber over the top. Now to add some dirt texture to it. First of all, I paint it all over with some PVA glue. I'm adding a bit more glue where I want more dirt to stick. I sprinkle over some dirt. This is just dirt from a garden that I've dried out in the oven and then sieved. I tip off the excess, and now I'm just going to add a bit more glue where I want the dirt to be a bit thicker and repeat the process. Once I was happy with my dirt coating, I saturated it in scenic cement and it was left to thoroughly dry. Here it is, nice and set. You can see that dirt's not going anywhere. I'm going to add a little bit of grass down the centre of the tyre tracks. I paint on some tacky glue where I want the grass to be. And then I just sprinkle on some grass with my static grass applicator. And here's my little strip of grass finished. I'll take off the masking from around the base now. I'll just use a brush and some brown paint to tidy up the odd area where the white filler is showing through after I've removed the masking. Now I'm going to be needing some pumpkins to finish off this diorama. To make my little pumpkins, I'm going to start with a small ball of orange modelling clay. I'll just press a little pumpkin dimple into the top of it with this tool. Now I'm going to use a thinner tool to mark in the little pumpkin lines. It's looking a little bit rough, but I'll just roll it in my fingers a little bit to smooth it off. For the stem, I take a tiny bit of green clay. I'll roll it out really thin on my finger and then cut out a little piece of stem. And now I'll just use this little tool to put it in place. And once it's in place, I just press it down with my finger and it gives it that sort of pumpkin style twist there on the stem. To make the leaves, I just press out a vague sort of pumpkin leaf shape on the end of my finger with some more green clay. Then I'll just mark in my veins here. And then I can just press it on to my pumpkin here. Use the same method to make some longer vines as well. And here are all my pumpkins and vines. These probably took me about 30 minutes to an hour to make. They're baked in the oven for a little while until they harden up. Now I'm just going to paint in a little bit of detail on them. Just going to use a bit of thin off-white paint. And I'll paint in the center of the leaves. And then just some little white lines on the top of the pumpkins. With the pumpkins and diorama base finished, I can go back to the truck now and assemble it. I'll just start by putting the wheels in. The green light wheels are always quite easy, they just press onto the axles. I did have to shorten these axles a little bit. And then it's in with the windscreen. And I'll just pop the base on. And then I used a little bit of black Starbond super glue to hold it in place. And then I placed my pumpkins. Before we take a look at our finished truck and diorama, let's just be reminded of what we started with. Our blue Hot Trucks 52 Chevy. Let's get it weathered up and off to the pumpkin farm to do some work. And here it is, our finished custom Halloween pumpkin truck. Fresh from the pumpkin patch, loaded up with pumpkins to make some jack-o'-lanterns or some pumpkin pie. I think this Halloween inspired build came out pretty cool. I really like that green colour on this truck, and I think the green light wheels work really well with it. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below. A massive shout out to Sharon for giving me the idea for this build. I highly recommend you go and check out his build because it's quite different than mine and it's really cool. And subscribe to his channel because he makes heaps of awesome customs and it's really worth checking out. Welcome now to my new subscribers, and a massive thanks to everyone for the great comments and likes on my videos. As always, a huge thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters who help to support the channel. If you'd like to join them, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below. Thanks heaps for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.